Oh, great. Okay, so let's do that. So then we can just get started. So I proposed an agenda here, which is, I don't know if you've seen it yet.
No.
So this is what we could go through, unless someone else shows up and wants to talk about something else.
Yep, sure.
So the first thing is the open pull requests. So what's blocking those from being merged? What can we do to get these merged?
Yeah, so the main thing blocking this, from what I can remember, is that it uses array from, and as the author says, it requires ES6. And I guess that's fine for most application, but it feels kind of wasteful that you lose all Internet Explorer compatibility just to support a special case of splats. But I'm not sure.
The support
And I
for
think when I look through it, I think we should have add a few more tests that tests other use cases of Splat, but I just haven't had the time to follow up on it.
yeah, so that's not something that's likely going to be merged soon.
It kind of depends. Like if people are content with using ES6 only and requiring Babel or some similar transpiler to use it with legacy browsers, then I think we could probably merge it.
But how would okay? So how would that work? Or we're not using Babel today.
No.
So Babel would have to be introduced to the build.
Yeah, or the people who want to develop things for older browser would need to introduce Babel in their Webpack config or
okay, so
process.
It wouldn't affect everybody. Okay, good.
No, you wouldn't need to do that in general.
Nice.
Just for the people who opt in or manually configure it. But I do agree that since await, like async await support, we are relying on native async and await. So when you use features like that, you are already effed if you use Internet Explorer and all the browsers. So I guess we could say that before the next community meeting, we merge this, and then I could write a few more tests for it, and at least test it carefully. So our test suite isn't really that good right now. It's mostly trying it for GitSpeak and Scrimba, because that's two big code bases written exclusively in Imba. And if everything works there, I'm quite confident that it's an okay change, I guess. And if we start going down this path, there are tons of things that Imba does that are quite complicated that will be much easier if we embrace ES6 and if we can just use the native features from ES6, like optional arguments, default values for arguments, splats in many different cases, destructuring, things like that would be so much easier if we can just do that with native JavaScript. So it would be very welcome if we decide to do that at some point.
Sounds good. I haven't looked at all of the ES6 features. I know I'm using some in regular JavaScript.
Yeah.
But the way Imba does async await is nice, so that just works.
Yeah.
That's one of the features I've thought would be used in more recent JavaScripts, or is that not the ES6 feature?
Yeah, it is an ES6 feature.
But you can use that today in Imba.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you use that in Imba, so you can still compile with some flag, I don't even remember what it is, but like EA compat or something, which uses the Imba custom async await, which is much more complex, like it's done in Babel and stuff like that, where we rewrite a lot of the structure to mimic async await. But then you lose a lot of the better features of that, like try catch with promises and stuff. Okay. So Yeah, if you already use await in Imba, you most likely don't need to support Internet Explorer. And we could merge this pull request.
Yeah, that sounds good. It's been there for a while. I'm not sure how long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Soon a year.
Yeah.
And how about the Adslot thing? Because there was a follow-up issue created for that specifically.
Yeah, so that's a bigger thing,
and what is it? Can you explain the feature? Well, what's being solved there?
So the feature request is kind of being able to create. So right now, if you create a custom tag in Imba, you usually need to do all the rendering of that tag inside of the tag itself. But what you might want is to have a custom element where you render that custom element somewhere and include some, what would you call it? Include some named like inner content. And then inside of that tag, you can just basically say everything that was inside the header slot should go in here. Everything that was inside a content slot should go in here. So it's basically...
Is it the same as slots in Vue?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very close to that. And the main challenge there is that we would need to introduce some new syntax, and it would need to like be performant and kind of logical in the Imba concepts.
Yeah.
And I haven't had the time to look enough at that. And we had a discussion, but as with almost everything else, I just haven't been able to follow up on it until you joined here and started trying to get things actually done.
Yeah, I see. But is this like, so this is going to be a language level change?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not something that's going to happen very soon. So that should be...
No, I think we should at least discuss it a lot and try to create some different proposals syntax-wise. There are already, like, you could hack very basic slot support yourself, but it is still...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are at least the 2 open pull requests. So there are still several open issues, but we don't need to look at those today. Over 80. I've tried to go through some of them and close old ones. There are probably more that are false positives or fixed.
And now that we've gotten started with cleaning up this stuff, we will go through them.
I think we should definitely consider organizing some bug squashing party, which is just Imba related. Where for a few hours, only Imba specific issues are resolved. So either closing old issues or trying to address low-hanging fruits. And so on.
I agree.
Let me write that down. Suggestion. Bug squashing party, triaging bugs there. Yeah, so the next topic is user pain points, and I should remember them, but I've forgotten all of them.
So there are tons of user pain points, and that's probably the main thing stopping people from learning Imba.
Yeah, hot module reloading, but that's possible.
Yeah, that's possible, at least the primitive version of it. There are obviously many syntax level user pain points, like the needing to remember to use the colon syntax for accessing properties and attributes. And when you use the dot, it's implicit calling. That's actually, I think that is one of the very biggest challenges or hurdles for people coming into the language. There are ways around that. We could have like a debug mode where the compiler adds a lot of extra checks and gives you a readable, understandable error message when it sees that you have tried to call a function that where you obviously wanted to just access the property. A good example would be window.location or document.location. In Imba, you will need to write like document : location. Yeah, and especially these kinds of cases, we could easily even warn people about at compiler level. At least these global. But then again, that wouldn't cover all the.
Yeah, I think the error messages could definitely be better. So one issue I've noticed is the indentation stuff, and that's really terrible. Like, and specifically where I've noticed it is whenever I take code from imba.io, from one of the old markdown files, and then I copy it and then I paste it into another page and then try to run it as an example. Or when I take it from the markdown into Scrimba, I just see red lines start showing up, and then you see this generic error inconsistent something. So it would actually be nice to have a formatter. So if you know from Golang you have Go FMT or FMT, which can just read a Go file and then just reformat it.
Yeah. That would definitely be useful. One of the main problems is probably that I'm sticking with tabs, and the default for most people and in most editors are obviously spaces. So I guess the documentation uses tabs. You probably use spaces in Sublime.
Spaces.
We could go through that whole discussion, but I know that most people will use spaces.
Yeah, but is that something that could be handled on the compiler level? Like, can't the compiler just figure that out for you and you don't need to care about it? So it would try to figure out, is this person using spaces or tabs, and then just...
Yeah, it does, but the problem is when you mix the two.
Okay, the problem is when you mix.
So the compiler, if I remember correctly, it actually looks for the first indentation in the file, and then it uses that as a baseline. So even if like the first thing you indent is 3 spaces, it will assume that you have 3 spaces per indentation level in the whole document.
Okay. Then we should have a tool that fixes it for you.
Yeah.
That enforces one of them. Because then you can run through that tool and then your code is working again. So what I'm currently doing now is I go through one by one line. Like I walk through the whole source code again, where I start from the top line and then take back the previous line and then hit enter until the indentation is correct.
Yeah, you could in Sublime, you could just convert all spaces to tabs, or like there are automatic tools for that.
Yeah.
But I do agree, it would be nice in general with the formatter. That's one of the problems that the compiler, we have no tools that actually regenerate the Imba from the AST, the abstract syntax tree. We only take Imba code in, make this abstract representation of that code, and then convert it to JavaScript. But we have no methods for converting back into Imba code. And that's usually what these formatters does, kind of.
Okay.
They basically take your code in, parse it, and then regenerate the code in the way that their parser thinks it should look.
Yeah, I see. I'm not that familiar with formatter internals, but I've seen that generally you either have the run it and then give me some output, or replace it in place. Yeah. And then it overwrites it.
Yeah.
But I think a tool like that, it's not. Yeah, it's nice to have.
Yeah.
There was something else regarding documentation. No, actually, that's So I think some people are asking about, or one person asked, like an example, how do you start using Imba into existing applications? So one of the things that's awesome about Vue is you can drop Vue into a big application. Because of the way it's made. With the script tag, you can just add it. It's not specific to Vue, but they've focused on it, right? So you can just drop in Vue and then say here app and then start using it within a big application. So that's one thing I'm wondering about. So how do you start using Imba into, let's say, a big Angular application?
Yeah, that's a good question. And although it's possible, I think it is kind of cumbersome now because Imba will start listening for events at the root level of the document. It will like do certain things that might interact with other code on this. I think it should mostly work now, but we just need examples of how you would do that.
Yeah.
Again, I haven't done that a lot, so I haven't.
I think that would be interesting because then it's easier for people to actually isolate, or if you have a big app and you want to try out something new, you could try it out partially and then see how it behaves with less traffic or less focus. And then if you get a good experience, you gradually introduce it. That's how I was introduced to Vue, where I saw it being used in a WordPress site. And then later now doing Nux stuff. So yeah, I got a very good impression of Vue, seeing it, how it would behave just isolated in one part of a big application. I'm trying to think what else has been mentioned.
I'm not sure it has been mentioned on the chat recently, but there still is no like best practices for how to create a decent sized application in Imba. And that's obviously a huge pain point. But if you were to start a big project now, no one really knows how to structure it, what kind of data layer you would want to use, all these things. Luckily, we have been experimenting with that for 2 years now with Scrimba and GitSpeak, and we are at least starting to get a hang of how to efficiently structure an Imba.
Yeah.
But we should start to take that learning out into a kind of a skeleton app, or at least start documenting how we think it should be done.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea to do that. Extract some of the best practices from GitSpeak and Scrimba. Actually, I can write these notes later, but I just
but it's good.
So yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I think more people, or when that's done, it's also possible to take those ideas and then wrap it into some kind of tool like Create X app. And this one person has started on something called Start Imba, which is cool. It works, but it supports Webpack and Parcel. So hopefully that's going to get some more updates. There's not been any development on it recently. But I've also seen that there is a lack of, okay, here's a set of tools. Now you just need a few examples of how do you actually use these tools, and then you can go do whatever you want. So that's one thing people have asked about, more examples, bigger examples.
And that's obviously something I need to do, and that you can just annoy me and remind me to do, and I will manage to do that. There are many things, especially from GitSpeak, like techniques, examples of how to do tooltips, how we do shortcuts in the applications, how we structure reuse components for different types of data. Tons of interesting topipics that would be like 10-20 minute screencasts.
Even just the HUD, like that pops up whenever you do stuff.
And the Markdown editor, even though it's extremely complicated and dense, it's also something that would be cool to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, making some of that open source will also be very good.
Yeah.
So people can actually see the code.
Yeah.
And also try it out.
Could actually make a lot of Git speak open source, I think. So nice. There's no reason to protect it since it's written in Imba. So I don't think many people would be able to.
I've actually been experimenting recently, and I've tried creating small tools and then trying to make it as a module, and it's actually really nice. It works.
Yeah.
Like you can write your stuff, and then the integration with JavaScript, like you can just produce JavaScript code with the build process.
Yeah.
And then you have a library, so it's compatible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
so
true.
People can actually use your Imba code.
Yeah.
And so I think there's many cool things you could simplify and like UI components basically.
Yeah.
And then make available.
Yeah.
Pain points, more pain points.
There are more pain points, I guess, but.
Yeah, but I think those are good. Like starting out, the documentation is the last one probably I would mention. It needs to be revamped. Like not a full rewrite, but the full restructuring of the content and figuring out what's the primary focus and secondary and so on, and then just pushing into that effort. So I think like more examples, definitely more examples, and then also more resources. So one thing I would be interested in is extending the advanced section too.
Yeah.
So for potential contributors, people who want to make changes, so they can just jump in there. People probably don't even know how to run the tests. Like that's not documented. Where do you put the new test, and so on. So I've started working on that, and I'm also trying to merge some documents, like documents which don't make any sense anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm hitting some issues with the examples, at least the old ones, because the styling, I'm not familiar with the less code.
Yeah.
Because let's take the clock example.
Yeah.
If I pull it out of docs and put it into the guides, I'm not sure the hierarchy is correct anymore, because the styling doesn't seem to work. Or maybe it's something related to Scrimbla, or
that's a good question actually. There's a lot of, I think it uses Scrimbla, so there are so many hacks in that build process to make examples work. It would probably be better to take the old examples and create new ones and just make them in either use Scrimbla, like embed scrims, or use Monaco, the VS Code extension in the...
Because that's what we're using right now.
No, we're using that in Scrimbla.
Yeah, but what are we actually using?
Yeah, in Imba.io now, we're not even using code editor. Yeah. We're only using a highlighter, and there we're using Monaco.
But the code editor itself, does it work if you only do Imba specific things?
Are you talking about Scrimbla now?
Yes, yes. I just have to ask because I was curious about the code base.
It kind of works, yeah. Okay. It works for Imba. It's actually a really cool type of code editor.
Yeah.
It's not based on lines of code. It's basically representing the whole syntax tree as DOM elements in a pretty nice way, but it's still very fragile, and it would need a lot more developer to become stable. So it's basically deprecated.
Yeah, but I mean, like, can't you use it today if you wanted to use it?
You can, but you will run into bugs like every...
For example?
I don't even remember, like when you want to open an array, then suddenly the caret, it doesn't allow you to open an array because it thinks you're inside of some sort of structure, or there's many things like that.
I just thought maybe the Imba support in there would be really awesome compared to Monaco or...
Yeah, if we had continued on it, then it would definitely be very good compared to Monaco. But Monaco is very good. and the syntax highlighter for Imba is pretty good in Monaco. And we also have an Imba worker that gives some annotations and things like that.
But since I'm curious about it, extracting the Monaco stuff out of Scrimba or GitSpeak, is that like, is it straightforward? Like, I don't understand what's required to actually run this Monaco thing.
So Monaco is not from GitSpeak or Scrimba. Monaco is the VS Code project.
Yes.
And we have added some Imba stuff, but it's very easy to extract that from GitSpeak and Scrimba.
And then you could easily require it and just use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
So that should be possible to create, like Svelte has, like create a new playground, simple playground thing in Imba.io.
Yeah, that would be cool, or for other tooling related things.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. We have lots of topics in there now. So I was thinking the next topic is the release process. So one thing I really don't like about the release process currently is that whenever a release is done, there are no tags, because like I like to read news and I would use I would use the tag to use as a referral point. So I can say, show me all the commits between version 1.x and 1.y. And then I can read.
Yeah.
Or I could Git lets you extract all of the patches, and then you could send all of the commits to yourself as emails.
Yeah.
And then you could read one by one.
So that's where you come in.
So
definitely it's messy. It's just currently it's like we deployed a new version because there was something I needed for web workers when I was playing around with that. It's very not structured, as you say. But already with these meetings and the plant meetup and us talking a lot, I think we can come up with a much better release process.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, this is the major topic, I would say, for me at least.
Yeah.
So people can actually keep track of it, and they can easily use GitHub. Like, there's nothing wrong with NPM.
Yeah.
Like, use that when you're installing your dependencies. But if you just are curious what's happened, you can always go here and just press this if you don't want to read it locally, and then you can just see, okay, here's some stuff that happened. And actually these commits, so these commits are not even related to this release, but I don't know how to, I don't get that part. But basically the point was that you could run the comparison when you're here. You could,
tags. You could select the tag and then compare the tag to another.
1.4. And you should be able to, you don't need to do the pull request part. I think you should just be able to write here in the URL, just compare, right? Like this.
I don't remember.
Yeah, like this. I think the other way around. So here you would have master, and here you would have 1 point.
And then you need to change to master on the other side.
Okay, it's like this. Okay, yeah. Like this?
No, you just didn't change it to master when you tried to first. So now, in that you do 1.4.
Like this?
I guess. And in that you do master.
Oh yeah, okay, now I see. All right. Yeah, so basically,
Yeah.
Then you see the changes, right? So you can actually browse them. So that's one of the features.
Yeah.
I think that would be good to like maybe create some documentation around it.
Yeah.
And then it's covered, right? It could just be a checklist. So do the usual stuff which has been done before, and also remember git push -- tags.
Yeah.
Because if you have your local computer here now, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same one you use to release.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're in the same directory now, you should be able to run git push -- tags.
Yeah, but now.
So if you just go to the Imba directory.
But I don't even think we tagged it.
Oh, yeah, you didn't even tag it. Oh, I see.
So we could tag it now because we haven't done any commits after.
Yeah, okay, do that. Git tag and then I think it was 1.4.7. Yeah, awesome.
Do we follow that syntax with V first? I think that's also like.
Doesn't matter. You can. I don't have any strong opinion on that. But yes, you can do. You could probably just add that. I think GitHub doesn't care. I think you could really just write whatever you want in there. But most tools parsing should understand the V prefix, I think.
Yeah.
And that should, because you just made a push, right? So.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then that's the latest release.
But I don't think it's added as a release here.
Yes, it's a tag.
Yeah.
But like, people will see it, I think.
Yeah, and then you could also draft.
Yeah, maybe we should do that.
You can actually create a new release and add the changelog there.
Okay.
But I agree. Maybe you could create the documentation for that process, the checklist we should go through.
Yeah, let me do that. Right. I can make a proposal and add that, and then you can see, does this make sense, and then give some feedback.
Yeah.
But I think in the documentation section, we should try to slim down the README. Like this README should look hot and small, and then everything else refer to imba.io. Like just get out of the GitHub README. We don't want the noise there. Just want it to look nice, very little compact information.
Yeah.
And then everything else is in the documentation, and there we should also have like the default stuff is the user. Like everything, like if we say 70-30, 70% of the content is for users, and then 30% is for developers or people who want to extend Imba for some reason.
Yeah.
And there we could have the release information.
Yeah.
And then we actually have the dog food imba.io.
Yeah.
So if you forget the release process, you just go to imba.io, advanced release process, and then.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. So the last topic is the roadmap. I was hoping Magnus would be here so he could tell us about his roadmap.
His ideas.
But he's not here, so we have an issue here we could use. Let me see. Roadmap, maybe. There.
From 2017.
Yes. So let's just go through all of this. I think we got someone in the chat. Welcome, Elias. Can you hear us? Yeah. Just say something in the. I think there should be a chat. But we just went through a bunch of topics from the notes. Let me add the link to the chat if you want to. Done. Actually, I don't know how to use the chat. Let's see. Do you have? Yeah, there's the chat. There's the link for the notes. So if you want to follow along there. And is my headset on? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so back to the roadmap. At the moment, we're focusing on the following. So a smaller stand, or actually, can't you just go through this and tell us if this has happened?
Most of it has not happened. Smaller standard library, this is still through. There are lots of helper functions on tags, all kinds of things that would be nice to slim down and remove. I think we've done some of that, removed maybe, I don't know how much, but we have removed some of the selector related things, old features of the language that no one really used or knew about. Because the thing is, Imba started so long ago that was basically started at the time of jQuery. So there were many features, even syntax features, for like making DOM selectors much more pleasant and that kind of imperative application structure. So most of that has been cleaned up, but there are still things remaining. Let me see if you can go back to. I only look at it on your screen, so
sorry.
Comparable cleanup, that's definitely still to be done. The compiler itself, like the AST syntax tree, is pretty nice, but the parser and rewriter are just horrible. No, not the parser, but the lexer and the rewriter. They're extremely messy. And it's very difficult to do anything there, basically, because it's so messy.
Yeah, I see.
And it started because this version of Imba basically started a long time ago as a CoffeeScript fork. And those two things are kind of still hanging around from that time. And it's very difficult to clean that up now. That's a job for Magnus. If he had a lot of spare time on his hands. More like yes, next. Imba was created back when JavaScript was still ES3 and created its own syntax for many concepts. That's true. Now that JavaScript has evolved, it would be preferable if you align the syntax close to what the rest of the JavaScript community is used to. This includes import, export, async await, destructuring assignments, spread, and classes.
But import and export is supported.
Yeah, it is supported, but it's not. The syntax for it is slightly different than ES6. Like, you cannot import a default. If you export a default in ES6, there's no natural way to import that default in Imba.
Because in Imba it would be X period something.
Yeah, in Imba you would basically, the only way to import the default of a module is to require the module.
Yeah, because then you wouldn't get the x.default something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of the problems. And all the other things he's mentioning, import, export, async await, destructuring assignment, especially spreading classes, would be much better if we just embraced ES6 classes now. There are some problems with that because the way we support super in classes are slightly different than how it works in ES6, etc. But at the same time, there aren't that many people using Imba now, so now is the time that we could change it.
Yeah, and people are not going to get so angry, and there's not too much documentation to update as well. It's not like books are written yet. So
no. So and that would also make the compiler itself simpler, because it wouldn't need to construct all these helper functionality around classes. And so again, if we had a lot of time on our hands, that would be high up on the priority list.
So ES next.
About ES next. I think this is this is very much related to the previous point, and I went through that now. It's true that we will remove a lot of complexity from the compiler if we just use native let bar const things. Just supporting let as a variable concept without ES6, like we do, includes a lot of complexity around tracking variables and their scope and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a good time for breaking changes. It would be very useful to have Magnus there, so hopefully next time he can join.
Yeah, hopefully next time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, I think that's all of the topics for today. Yeah. We can do a review and then do assignments. Yeah. So Yeah, the video is being recorded, but I'm not sure. Depending on the audio quality, we might just skip this recording.
Yeah.
Or maybe we're gonna edit it. So
yeah,
let's see.
And for the next time, we're gonna test beforehand, make the mic work.
Yes.
And possibly even sit in different rooms, just to be able to record on our own mics. Or we can buy a Yeti Blue or a mic that is meant for multi-person recordings.
Yeah, maybe that's better. Yeah.
Because this is very directional. It's very good, but it's very directional. So both of us can't really talk in that at the same time, I think.
Yeah, we would have to switch.
Yeah. And next time, that's probably for later. Next time it would also be nice if Erik Tirado will be able to join. Then we can also talk more about branding and getting the website over to the new logo and all that sort of stuff. Yeah,
actually, I should have started writing all of this stuff down. So next time, better mic setup. We get, is it Erik Tirado like this?
Yeah.
Join and talk about branding. Get Magnus to talk about compiler internals, or
or just in general ES6, just what he thinks going forward as well.
Yeah, and actually what the date, I should add that too. So then we can do the review. So that's going to be on the 16th. Did you talk to Magnus about that date? Does it work for him?
I'm not sure, but I can hear with him.
We can also just change it later, but
yeah.
So I'm gonna add, so actually let me see if I can, I wasn't supposed to do that. Shouldn't be there. I think I can assign topics from here. Yeah, let me do that. So you're gonna try to merge issue 168? No, the pull request. No, wait, that's 167. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna write the new release notes. Let me see if I can. Yeah, it's a little bit scary with the names. I have to fix that some other time.
Scary with the names?
Yeah, because you can look up contacts and everything.
Oh.
Yeah. No worries. We'll edit that out. So that's the two follow-ups then. Yeah. This I don't know what we're gonna do with this. Maybe we should move this somewhere where it's visible, so we actually see it. I'll just move it here and organize. Yeah, we'll just have it there. You can put it in small font so it's not there. Cool. So is there any follow-up here or anything you'd like to add?
No, I think it's good. This is the first meeting. It's a good start.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to getting other people involved as well in the future. But definitely, it's I've broken so many promises about getting back to people and being active in the chat, and I just have so much to do, and I'll just end up ignoring everything else than working on GitSpeak and Scrim.
Yeah, so thanks for taking the time, Sindre.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be back here in 2 weeks.
Definitely. And thanks for getting my shit together and reminding me to do stuff and going through pull requests with me. And I think already in the last week or two, you can see a change coming for Imba. And that's very inspiring.
Great. Cool. See you next time.
You too.